As veterans, we struggle to fit in. Taught to never let feelings win. Lost in a world full of fear and pain. We all have hung our heads in shame. When we look up, we see hands reaching out. There is so much support about. It comes from above and others around. Please take a hand and rise from the ground. Stand up and fight for your life. Walk away from negativity. Don't give in to strife. Show up for yourself. Find your voice. Keep moving forward. You have a choice. Give compassion for the child inside. Healing pain, let hope reside. Lost you will no longer be. Then you can help set others free. Now speak up and with us share the tools that make pain easy to bear. Advocate for others to lighten their load. Use your voice and join our show. On Coffee Talk with Bryan and Marie, we heal out loud, PTSD to advocacy.
And what's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for joining us on another episode of Coffee Talk with Bryan and Marie. How are we doing today, Marie?
Hey, today has been a journey, we're having technical problems. You guys are gonna hear the echo. I've tried everything that I can do, and we just spent about almost an hour trying to figure out, and we're just like, whatever. We're here. Thanks.
Yeah, we honestly needed that today because that's just about where it's gone. But glad that we are here and super excited for our next guest as well. Quite a interesting, guest we're gonna have, and you obviously have some great stories with our next guest too. So we're gonna be hearing about that, and also before we get going, you know how we do, we're going to try to do our little veteran showcase part. We started off with today we're going to be doing another podcast show, and once again, these come from the tip of the spear. I got to meet two of these guys, and really cool guys. I've watched a couple of their podcast shows. They have some really great guests on, and they have some really great conversations, but I'll go ahead and cue it up so that way you guys can kind of go over there and at least subscribe to their YouTube channel. You know how we say it's free 99 to go just click on that little bell if you have a YouTube. And these guys are pretty active. So I do have a little bit of a description about their show I'm going to talk about, so that way I can give you guys a little bit of a feel. A veteran-owned podcast featuring conversations with military veterans, active duty personnel, and first responders to discuss their transition from service, healing, and personal journeys. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. They live stream on Thursdays at 7 p.m. And the focus of the show is they highlight stories of resilience, purpose, and veteran healing, featuring guests like Steve Jimenez, Highs for Heroes, and Daniel Archer. Hosts veterans talking to fellow veterans, addressing challenges in life after service. And they're also in the community. The podcast is active on Instagram. So if you guys want to go follow them over there, it's at Triple Threat Vet Podcast. And they promote veteran-owned causes as well. And so go out there, go give these guys a follow and a like, share whatever you can. Go give them some love, and It's another great podcast show out there doing amazing things and getting all these veteran stories out there.
Yep, and Ty has been a part of the tip of the spear. For those of you who don't know, that is the podcast for veteran podcasters, and we get together once a month, and whoever can kind of show up, we get together and we talk about, the latest events or stuff that's in the news, especially the stuff regarding other veterans and stuff like that. And then he also has been on the Cav Arts podcasting class, and so Cav Arts again is one of those things, kind of like there's Cav Arts and there's ASAP, and they encourage creativity with veterans. So go and look up Cav Arts and join the podcasting class if you're interested.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And gentlemen, keep doing what you're doing out there, and keep being a voice in the community, and also being an avenue where other veterans can use their voice as well. We appreciate you guys and what you're doing. All right, now we're going to give the show over to Marie and allow her to do one of her amazing poems, and I'll back out, and then we'll introduce our guests. So the floor is all yours.
Hey guys, yeah, thank you. So, something that I've been working on a lot lately is, or working, processing through, is we're coming up on Memorial Day. And with that, it's also been a year since the last time I saw my dad. And as you know, most of you guys know, he was a Navy veteran. And so there's been a lot of just thinking about the past and thinking about those on the other side that I'm missing. Also, with Memorial Day, there are friends that passed away, in Iraq, but also those that have killed themselves since we got back. And I've been thinking about one in particular, which is one that I was very close with, and I really owed him an amends. And so I've been kind of like processing through how can I make an amends? And I kind of got a message from the other side, and he asked me to reach out to some of our battle buddies, and which were his soldiers. And I was like, okay. And I'm really glad that I did, because they were both really struggling. And so I was just able to kind of have some of that common humanity and have a conversation with them about my own journey. And so as I've been thinking about all of this, there is a new poem that came to me, and I'm so grateful. It's very divinely inspired, but part of this has to do with the negative messages coming from the other side and the positive messages coming from the other side. And this is kind of perfect because our next guest is somebody that I deployed with. He was one of the NCOs that I deployed with. He's now a major, but a really awesome guy. But it's just kind of perfect because as we're coming up on Memorial Day, I'm processing through these emotions, and it's good to have that common humanity. Oh, I'm gonna cry. But it's good to have that common humanity with somebody who has been there beside me with it. So I'm really excited about this. This is our first time seeing each other, since I got out of the military, but we've talked on the phone a couple times. So anyways, thinking about just all everything of the messages from the other side and which messages am I listening to. So, messages from the other side. Messages from the other side, the place where all spirits reside, resonate so deep within and often come from my kin. Some come from friends long gone or others who passed, some I've done wrong. I tend to get lost reminiscing, finding myself endlessly listing all the wrongs in my past, words not said or harsh ones cast. When I feel self condemnation, I make the choice of resignation. I know that message very well. That voice wants me to live in hell. Making the choice to refocus my mind, I start thinking of words that are kind. I listen to spirits speaking to me who genuinely want me to be free. The ones that don't think I am damned for the hurts caused by my hand. They offer opportunities to make amends through community. Then I think of those in need who may need help, need me to plant a seed, one of hope and recovery as they go through self discovery. I cannot change my past choices. When I help others, God rejoices. So do the spirits round about. I can almost hear them shout, with Christ, They are holding me. They lift me high so I can see above the clouds of blame and shame so I'm not blinded by the pain. As I am healing day by day, I share with others how I found a way to heal from my list of trauma and overcome my life of drama. Living amends to those still around, I open my heart so love can abound. I do my best to take better actions and not get lost in overreactions. As I do this, the message gets louder that the other side couldn't be prouder. My squad of angels holds me tighter. The weight of my past keeps getting lighter. I'm no longer bound by mistakes I have made, for at Christ's feet they have been laid. I hope one day I no longer fight the messages I know are right, the ones that bring internal peace. For then, self punishment may finally cease.
American made, better known, we are Doc Goodbeard. It's more than just looking good. When it comes to your beard, we believe you can have it all. Thoughtfully designed, unique fragrances, and affordable prices. We strive to provide a line of uniquely scented balms and oils that you won't find in other products. Come on, rock with Doc, and remember, it's all about the beard, man. So what do you say? Let's take that average beard and make it badass. Go to docbeard.com.
Special shout out to my buddy Kevin, who is a United States Marine veteran who owns that business, and so it's all about the beard, man. All right, Marie. Well, thank you so much for your amazing poem as usual, and I know you're definitely, I imagine when you are going to have a guest on that you've served with, we've had a couple now. It's going to resonate feelings and things. Stories are going to come up and things. I mean, a lot of times I'll be talking to someone that I've served with, and they say stories that I totally freaking just like. I don't know if I've capped it out or what. Throughout life, just oh shit, there's cobwebs on this thing. Oh yeah, I remember this. You know what I mean? So I imagine that this is going to be a little touchy for you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm already tearing up, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of memories. There's good and bad, but just overwhelming. It's just overwhelming because this is somebody that's part of my past,
Right.
and has been supportive of me over the years. And yeah, so I really really appreciate Nathan, coming on. So let me tell you guys about him and then we can bring him on, okay? So, Nathan Cumming is currently a U.S. Army major preparing to retire after more than 23 years of active service. Actually, he just said that he has postponed his retirement, so he'll talk about that in a little bit. But he originally enlisted shortly after September 11th, 2001, serving as a computer automations repair, combat medic, and finally as a commissioned officer and UH-60 pilot. He served 2 OIF combat tours as a medic from 2006 to 2007, and then the one with me in 2009 to 2010, which he was a staff sergeant back then, with the Army's now former 3-2 Stryker Brigade Combat Team, as well as leadership and staff positions ranging from squad leader to HQDA staff officer. He current his he currently serves in HQDA G1 office of the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. I'll let him explain what that is because I have no idea. As part of the COVID-19 Reinstatement and Reconciliation Task Force, Major Cumming is married to Jennifer Cumming, and they will celebrate their 23rd anniversary this coming December. They
Wow.
have 3 children who are 21, 18, and 14. Nathan,
23 years of marriage and 23 years of service. I gotta wonder how that's went hand in hand. But
yeah,
yeah, you gotta love all of our acronyms, right?
yeah.
With the units.
But
All right,
Nathan,
let's
come
bring on
come on
yeah.
up. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing, Marie? It's so great to see you again. After talking on the phone a bunch of times, it's finally good to see you face to face. Like you said, it does bring back it does dredge up a lot of emotions, a lot of memories of that time. Bryan, I've watched the pod for a little bit now. Watched a lot of the episodes, and it's really an honor to meet you. It's awesome to be on.
Man, it's an honor to have you on our show, and it's always an honor to get the perspective of what's going on currently. When people are serving, because our perspective is mine's from 20 years ago or so, and Marie's is from good 10-15 years ago. So our perspective is a little on the old side, I guess. I'm sure there's a lot of things that are different. You know we're those people that you guys all talk about. We're those veterans they always got something to say. But we're happy to have you on, man. And so let's get to know a little bit more about you. This is your opportunity for you to tell us the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you feel comfortable with talking about. But go ahead and start off wherever you like to, and
Oh, nice.
just
I
wherever
really
you
appreciate
want
it.
to land us at, man. So
Hey, no, it's awesome. It really is an honor to be here. So, like Marie mentioned, kind of those are the highlights, and yeah, I can go through the alphabet soup that I work for in a little bit. But so I was 17 years old when I enlisted. Obviously, I was still in high school. I had just started my senior year. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was not. I was told that I wasn't college material by my family, which was difficult because my grandfather was a PhD summa cum laude biologist from Harvard. So yeah, so it obviously it was there. My dad actually got his degree in broadcasting from Liberty University here in Virginia, so that was cool. But yeah, so I was 17, so I had to get permission from my parents. And so they were definitely reluctant to sign. I was young and dumb, of course. My dad, remember, this is October 2001, and went to my parents to be like, hey, well, I mean, it'll give me money for college, it'll help me do, kind of propel in life. So I've got no other options, I've got no other nothing on the table. So let me, we weren't that wealthy, we were kind of lower middle class, we struggled financially. But my dad goes, he says, and my dad passed away in 2013, actually about 2 months after I commissioned as an aviation officer. So he actually got to go to my college graduation. So he got to see me finally, culminate as an aviation in my career. But he goes, Nathan, what if there's a war? And I go, Dad, there's not going to be a war. This is October 2001. So, and lo and behold, my entire rest of my 20 plus years of career has been pretty much nothing but war. So fast forward, I go to basic training, I go to AIT, and as I'm coming off the plane in San Diego, I'm in uniform, looking at the televisions in the airport, and it's showing ground forces invade from Kuwait, right? Invade Iraq. So I was like, oh, I guess there's the war that I told my dad would never happen.
Mhm.
So continued on. That year after I got back from basic and AIT, I ran into this beautiful young lady while attending church, and we just hit it off. A lot of people thought we were crazy. So I was 19 at the time, and we were from the time we met, from the time we got married, was about 6 months.
You did the
So
Christian thing, bro. You guys had to get married really fast because you guys, yeah, baby.
yeah. So no, it really, what was funny is it was actually in my life is very, very much intertwined with hers, because she actually, and she would be a great interview also. And Marie, I think we had talked about this, just because of not just the trauma, but also living life as a military wife, also having to process and deal with the trauma while dealing with me being in the military. So her story is amazing, much more compelling than mine, but I digress. So we got married, and one of the predicates was, me being able to take care of her, because she had so many medical problems. She had a lot of health problems. She was about to lose her license because she had syncope, so she had passing out spells. And we're just like,
Does she
well,
have POTS?
she does. She has
So do
POTS. She has
I.
Ehlers-Danlos. She's
So
got
do I.
yeah, yeah. Well, when you mentioned it, when we talked over the phone and you mentioned,
Yeah.
I was like, this is kind of weird that yeah, POTS, Ehlers-Danlos. She has optic nerve hypoplasia, so she's blind in her left eye. So it's like underdeveloped optic nerve. Yeah, that's just a few of the things, that she has dealt with in her life.
Yeah,
Besides a lot of
not
trauma.
fun.
I mean, a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
family and otherwise. So,
We would
so we
love
get
to
married.
have her on the show. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll get her booked when we get off of here.
Yeah, I'll let her know. I've already told her that we were going to do this today, and she's upstairs. And in fact, she was sitting in the corner for a little while watching me wait for the show to start. And I'm like, "Are you actually going to sit there and watch me the entire time?" She's like, "No, I'll go do something else." I'm like, "Okay."
And we
So
fumbled the whole time that
I
she's
know.
sitting there too.
I mean, luckily she can't hear you. I can hear you.
Thinking,
No,
"So is this
but
gonna be?"
yeah, yeah, that's good. So yeah, but just heckling me in the corner, probably deservedly so. Um, but so we got married, and that was really the start. I'd originally joined reserves as a computer automations repair. My dad was an electronics guy, so I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's what I should do because that's what my dad did. And it just wasn't for me. Like I was in the reserves actually in Riverside, California. So I would make that 2-3 hour drive from San Diego, for drill, as a teenager in high school, and then after I came back from basic training.
Brutal
um,
traffic, by the
Yep,
way.
it was, yeah. Yeah, so Route 15, yep, Highway 15, it was nuts. So, and it's crazy that I did that. It was like, yeah, it was like 3 hours of driving each way, but that's what I thought I had to do. Anyway, so we got married, and then, uh, you know, trying to make ends meet as a reservist and a target security specialist in Southern California wasn't gonna cut it. So we decided to move in with her parents in Arkansas. So that was like my first journey sort of out of state. Hadn't traveled anywhere out of state growing up. So we moved out, and that was actually we were pregnant with our first kiddo, our now 21-year-old, who's currently in Scotland on a visiting. So she's off and running. So it's amazing. But went to Arkansas, joined active duty as a combat medic, and that's where my journey started with 3-2 Stryker Brigade. First assignment was at AIT in 2004, late 2005 or early 2005. Got assigned there. 2006, we were off to Iraq, and that was an extended tour. So that was the surge, if you guys recall. I had heard all of the stories from the guys that I met when I first got to the unit, and I'm in fact still friends with many of them. I don't know if you remember Sergeant Vance Kopp. So he retired successfully. Now he's got this big old beard. And he rides motorcycles. A great dude. Him and his wife Elena. Um, so, but yeah, I had heard all the stories. So I had lived vicariously that deployment, and that was the first deployment. That was 03 or '04.
So
So I
you
mean,
were
it was
you were with
pretty rough.
32 the entire time?
Yeah, for 6 years, from 2005 to 2011. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
If you
So
were part of the push, it would have been '03-ish 'cause, I was over there. I went
correct.
over there January of 2003, and we pushed the berm right before March or right in March. But I remember taking the first missile March 8th, and I only know that because it's my son's birthday, so
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you
So
just
so we
just
did it.
just for a timeline, sorry. So
Yeah.
you were over in Kentucky for the first deployment, and then you went over to 3-2? Is that what you're saying? So
No, so no, no. So I went to Arkansas.
Arkansas, not
Y
Kentucky,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, not Kentucky. Different southern state.
Sorry.
Don't get the 2 confused. No,
Sorry.
um, went to Arkansas, joined active duty, because basically I couldn't transition. So I was a reservist, and then basically I had to tell the unit, I was like, "Hey, I gotta go. Like, I can't live here anymore. We can't survive." And they're like, "Okay." And they kinda hemmed and hawed, and they dragged their feet in giving me, basically detachment orders. It was like a conditional release of like, "Hey, we'll release you from the reserves from your obligation that you signed up for to go active duty." And I got in touch with a recruiter when we got to Arkansas. And he's like, "Dude, your GT score is phenomenal. Like your ASVAB score is like, have you ever been considered being a combat medic?" And I was like, "No." Like I always thought I was bad with people. And he's like, "Dude, like you should do this. It's awesome." Yeah, Sergeant First Class or Staff Sergeant William Redwine. Went active duty from Arkansas, went to San Antonio for a second AIT. So I was prior service
Yeah.
AIT, which was great, which was phenomenal. And then, and then first assignment was Fort Lewis, Washington at the time, now JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord. Um, and so went through that entire year of integration into the unit. Again, they had just got back. So now I'm this brand new
Gotcha.
PFC going to
Okay.
you experience it. Brand new PFC come to the unit with these, combat hardened folk, right? At least they had done that first year, in Iraq, 03, 04. And then, I'm a cherry dude, coming to the unit.
So you
Right.
came in after that deployment, after they did the
Yep.
push.
Yep.
Okay, that's where
They had
my
already come
brain
back.
was
Yeah.
confused. Okay,
Yeah. I jumped in on their reset. Like they were already starting to reset. So I jumped in, and the
got it.
first thing that we were doing was, pulling out medical supplies out of a Connex in the rain. You got to experience all that
Oh, that
happy
was
crap,
hell.
all that joy, right? Yeah, where your hands are just freezing just because you're so soaking wet. But so yeah, I jumped in with them, but it was pretty good, and I was able to kind of pick up. And I was different just because I was prior service, and I was married with a kiddo, and so I got treated just a little bit differently. I mean, I lived off post in an apartment with my wife, and also just because of my upbringing. So I grew up, rather religious. I didn't party. We didn't drink. Um, that kind of stuff. um, it was just I was very considered very straight laced. Like I was looked at as very straight laced. In fact, I come to find out later on talking with folks from the unit that we served with, they're like, yeah, you were just a straight shooter. You were just always like, and I guess would be someone would define it as like a goody two shoes. Like, hey, you were just too good of a person, right? Like nothing, you could do nothing wrong, which was not true. Just want to clarify that. Um, but um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
Play the
so
part. Play the
I
part.
don't I don't remember much, but what I do remember is that you were strict and you were kind. Like I remember that's about all I remember about you
You
is
by the book.
that
You were by the book kind of guy.
I
you
was,
did.
which was funny
Yes.
because that actually got hammered one day. And you were in evac, I was in treatment platoon, and and unfortunately, being the way that I was, and it's like that was just who I was. I couldn't not be someone else, right? I couldn't try to be someone else, but it also didn't necessarily win me a great amount of friends. I got along with everybody. Like I listened to everybody, but not everybody got along with me because of the way I was. So I remember one day, Sergeant First Class Mendoza, who I'm still in contact with, Neil, and he's great. And you should have him on. He's had a journey, but he
I wanna have him and Sergeant Man
that
and
would be
Sergeant
awesome.
Lawrence. I wanna have
Yes,
all of them on.
all
It'd
three of them
it'd be
together.
fun, like, let's
Oh,
get everybody. Oh, that
That
would
would
be
be
awesome.
it would be a 296 reunion. That would be so cool. We should do
That
that.
would be fantastic. We
Yeah. So
should.
he let's see, look at that. We're coming up with ideas already. So this is going to be a great podcast. So we I
I
was
feel so army strong right now. I can't.
he can't do it. He says like ew. So I feel icky. Sar Mendoza actually one day I recall was he hammered the rest of the platoon openly in public, basically for not doing it, and then he pointed me out. He's like, Sergeant Cumming is the only guy who sits down and reads regs. And I struggle with that because I took things very black and white. I read it and was like, it's black and white. Whatever it says, that's what I'm supposed to do. And so I ended up, and behind me is the creed of the non-commissioned officer. You know, I took that shit seriously, like during boards, and so I was. Some people were like, "Dude, you're like an automaton. You just do everything that you're told," which is true. Like I was like, "Yeah, but I'm supposed to. That's why I'm a soldier. I'm supposed to be doing that." So again, didn't necessarily serve me all that well because again, different people perceived it differently. And especially if you first met me, you'd be like, "That dude's a dick." Um, but then when you get to know me and when we talk and everything else, people go, "Oh no, he's actually like he's a decent dude. He does care about things," which is true. So went through that initial training, and then deployed in '06, June of '06, and that was an extended tour. So that went to September of 2007. So that was a 15-month tour, and that one was rough. Of course, right out the chute, first deployment, that is what I got. And now, I had one young kid midway through the deployment. You know, uh, Jen got pregnant with the second kid during. He was our middle kid was a mid deployment, mid tour baby. So that one was rough, and I didn't realize how rough it was. I didn't process that one, but there was definitely signs that it was rough. Um, I definitely wasn't the same person I was before I deployed. I deployed as a specialist. I got back as a sergeant. And it was just kind of things had changed. Even though I didn't accept the change. I didn't really realize things had changed, but things had changed. Um, and of course, we replaced. I forget what it was. It was like 325 Stryker or something like that from Alaska. We came to Mosul. We replaced them. They got on a plane, went home. Their plane had landed on the tarmac, and their command said, "Hey, you're being extended. Turn around. Turn the plane back around." The plane took off from Alaska, went back, and not only that, not only going from Mosul, but then they got reassigned to Baghdad. And of course, this is '06, so this is like peak, not great time to be to be in Baghdad. And so, long story short, we followed them. Uh, during that time, while I was with the Stryker Brigade, with the Brigade Support Medical Company, the Charlie Med for the Stryker Brigade, I was a detainee holding facility medic. So that was my first sort of assignment, taking care of detainees, which was interesting. Got to learn a lot. And then after that, I was attached with what was called the 3-2 MIT, which was the Military Transition Team, which was like a 12-man little SF team. Oh,
You weren't at the prison where there was all that stuff going down with the prisoners and stuff.
Abu Ghraib. Abu Ghraib was in Baghdad, and
Yeah,
and
that
the
that one
the
was
detainee hold. Yeah, that one was bad. Yeah,
that was a
and that one
whole
was
story and stuff that came
whole
out of that
story.
whole
Oh
thing,
yeah.
right? Yeah, you remember
Yeah,
that?
no,
Yeah.
that was terrible. And it ended up kind of like coming down to like being blamed on like one or two people, even though it's like,
Right.
it
Yeah.
was a systemic issue, and I think the Army recognized that.
Some people
But
took
no,
a fall.
oh yeah, they definitely did. It was pretty evident. But yeah, was there at the detainee holding facility in Mosul. Got attached to what was called Q West or El Kiara, which was like south of Mosul, as their personal medic for that little 12-man military transition team, teaching Iraqis, basically uh, U.S. Army tactics. It was there I kind of realized that a couple things. The first time that I've experienced another culture, and especially an Arabic culture, but it was a couple of realizations. Like one, they're people too; they're human beings. They have the exact same. We have these strict understanding of people, right? Of like. With at least at the time we were kind of inculcated like, okay, well, they don't watch porn, they don't drink, right? They're super hyper religious and everything else. And then I meet these soldiers and they're like, Mister, you have fiki, you have porn? Like, what? Like, do you have porno? Like, no. And I was like, like, you're just like us. Like we are the same. Um, so yeah, yeah. So that was what was funny. It was revelation. Also, the revelation was, you know, and I had my own interpreter, as the medic for that MIT team, trying to teach these guys medical tasks. And I realized that, like, I can try to inculcate these tasks, which are fine, but trying to get them to kind of like understand the concept of what freedom is, how the American Revolution came to be and how Americans fought for freedom and what they understand freedom to be, right, against oppressive forces. Like I was just like, they don't. It's just a cultural thing, right? Over years, they can't. It doesn't. It's not a one-to-one match. You can't do it.
It
You
doesn't
can't.
compute.
It doesn't compute. You can't inject American freedom and expect it to, just magically grow. It just doesn't work that way. So there was those realizations, and then went down to Baghdad that winter. So winter late '06, early '07, and that's when the first kind of the hit to the unit was the killing of Staff Sergeant Charles Allen. So he was one of our senior medics. He had gotten attached to an infantry unit. He was still assigned to us, but he got attached to the infantry unit. And while he was out on patrol, he had gotten hit in the back of the head or hit in the head with someone who had they had called it a sniper, but it was just a guy who with an AK who he did his spray and pray and he got lucky.
Mhm.
And so that was a hard hit to the unit because Sergeant Allen was like really well respected and very well trained. Um, so that was hard. Um, and so
That one, you
Pardon
killed
my
him, or did that one injure him severely? Or I
no,
mean, he
killed
just
him. Killed him almost
because
instantly. From
uh,
the stories from the recounting of what I remember us being told was he was in the hatch, and it was again there was some debate because there were certain TTPs that shouldn't have been right that may or may not have been followed. Like most infantry units were like, no, I don't want my medic in the hatch. I want his ass down inside the vehicle, because exactly for that reason, I don't want him to be, even exposed to any type of danger. And he was Sergeant Allen was a very strong personality. And so from what we were told, he's like, no, like I'm up here with my dudes. Like I can pull security too. I can do all these things. And so he was up in the hatch. And, and it's not to say that, his time came, but like we all, you had mentioned earlier, like we don't know how much time we have, and we don't know how or when or why, um, and this
It's
sort of,
it's sad when you kind of look at it. It's like he volunteered himself because it was going to be somebody that day, right?
Yep.
I mean, whoever
Probably.
was standing up there that day,
In
it
that
was
hatch.
likely, yeah, whoever was that person, that body up there
Yep.
was likely going to be the unfortunate receiving, the receiving
Yep.
end of a
Of
a
an
stray
AK
bullet.
round. Yeah. Yep. So that, that was hard. That was a big hit to the unit. And he's now memorialized in many ways. And there's still a lot of guys
Good.
from the unit who have
That's what
sought
we
to
said in
honor
the
his memory. Oh yeah.
that.
No, it's great. It's amazing. So, um, Baghdad was rough. Baghdad was a rough time. And we were at, Fob Stryker.
Real,
It was on
real
the,
quick, Nathan. The last guest that we just had on, dude? We need to
yeah,
put you in touch with him because he's trying to capture all the stories of the fallen. Because they want that person to have the same opportunity. Like you're out here telling your story. There's a team of their nonprofit, and what they do is they put these stories out. They make it. They
And they do
write
it.
them into a book. It's
They do
amazing.
it from the perspective of the battle buddies too, most of the time. So they
that's
want
so
they
cool.
want your stories about him, not just the family, because the family they see part of it, but us as battle buddies, we see them. And so yeah, that would be really great to get you involved with
That's
him.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, let me know. Yeah, hook me in. That would be awesome. Yeah, and unfortunately, he's not the only one. I've got more
No,
as
right.
I continue the story. So Baghdad was a rough place. Not only that, but we go from main Baghdad, which is, which was at BIOP, the Baghdad International Airport. We go from there to what, Marie, what you would later experience, which is Bakuba, which is Fob
Mhm.
Warhorse. So we do it in giant convoy, and this is part of it was Operation Arrowhead Strike. It was, I forget what the actual name of the operation was, but it was basically the pacification of Bakuba. So we go, and first day there, there's F-16s flying over, dropping 500-pound bombs and everything else, and I'm like, okay, well, this is an interesting place to be. Um, and that's where we ended up remaining for the remainder of that.
Were you guys
That
the ones that set up Bakuba for to look like the way that it was when we got there in
so
'09? Or
sort
was it
of.
already set up?
So it had already been established. It's of course we made improvements on it, but we weren't the primary tenants at the time. It was actually First Cavalry Division. So
Oh.
there were tanks and Bradleys when we went there, and so they wanted the Stryker Brigade, right? They wanted fast, quiet, agile, lethal, element, and of course it was under then Colonel Stephen Townsend, who would later on go on to become four-star General Townsend, AFRICOM commander, TRADOC commander. He would end up going on to have this phenomenal military career, and we think very likely it was that crucible of the '06, '07 deployment that really just rocketed his career. So it was
So
kind of interesting to see.
can I ask you, I could explain it, but I feel like you could explain it better. For those that are listening that might have never heard of a striker before, can you explain what a striker is for them?
Yeah. So a Stryker is an eight-wheeled modular vehicle that the Army created in the late '90s, early 2000s. It ended up being a part of this grand push by the Army to become a more agile, lethal, digital force. One of the main attributes of the Stryker that was made it so uh, wanted by the Army when the contract was finally solidified was that it had what was called FBCB2 at the time, or Force Battlefield Command Brigade and Below, which was basically a digital communication system architecture, which allowed them to, yep, there it is. So to be able to talk to each other. So you can see the antennas. It also had digital radios which could talk, could pass on messages vehicle to vehicle over the horizon. So technically, it had terrestrial OTH, over the horizon comms capability. So yeah, it was the bee's knees. 3-2 Stryker Brigade was the first Army's Stryker Brigade, even though first Army's first Stryker Brigade loves to say we're first Stryker Brigade. Yeah, but you weren't the first Stryker Brigade.
Yep.
3-2 Stryker Brigade was the first Stryker Brigade, and there was a lot of learning lessons, which you would end up also experiencing when you in the beginning of our next deployment, in the beginning of the 09 deployment. So, but we finally finish out the 15-month tour, this extended tour. We knew we were going to get extended. That wasn't a secret. We're like, hey, just brace for it. Bohica, right?
What's the
As
mental
you guys
health with
remember.
everybody at this rate in time? And, where's everybody's psych at this? Where's your guys' morale? I mean, is it,
Well, he kind of just said it. He bend over, here it comes again. You're kind of just
Bohica.
like screwed,
Yeah.
and you just kind of
he
continue on,
prefaced
right?
it a little bit. Let's elaborate.
accept it.
So,
Yeah,
was
just
the
accept it.
morale pretty low
Again,
at this? I mean,
it was
where's
actually no, it was actually better for us. It was actually better for the 3rd Stryker Brigade, because we saw what happened to the Alaska Stryker Brigade. From the stories we were told, when their planes came back and they landed back, I think they had this, I don't even know the number, but there was a spike in suicides in that unit. I don't know what the number was, but we were told, like, oh yeah, hey, like, they kind of said, they were kind of like, hey, what was it, like, be considerate of them. They're going through a rough time, right? And it was like, yeah, I think I would be too, if I were on the airplane, on the tarmac, back home, expecting to see my wife and kids, right? And then get told, hey guys, sit your ass down, go back. And that's what happened to them. So, but we saw that. So we had already, we had a 6-month heads up to be like, yeah, we're probably going to be sticking around a lot longer. It is what it is. And a lot of people, I tell a 15-month tour, they're like, what the hell? They're like, most people have never heard of that. You spend this 15-month extended tour in combat, and that was rough. I ended up feeling a lot of disassociation. I had a lot of trouble connecting, especially, again, you're overseas, you're by yourself. I mean, you're around other people, but you're not with your wife. You're not,
and what's your age at
I-
this point in time? You're
so I was, I think 23, 24,
okay.
maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So, so it was it was a new experience for me. Again, young, young daughter at the house, right? Jen, she was still dealing with her PTSD. She was still dealing with her, health issues. So it was, it was a weird, again, I didn't process, I didn't know how to process it, about what was going on around me. I just sort of did what I was supposed to do. I was like, well, okay, well, I guess I'm just supposed to do this. It is what it is. It didn't help, before the deployment. I don't know if you remember Joseph Aganaga. I'm sure. Did you remember Joseph Sergeant Aganaga? Okay. So we I sent Jen and Natalia to her mom's house in Arkansas. So that's where they stayed. And so that was good. They had family, they had support, which was great. But like, I stayed in the barracks before we deployed and everything else. And like, it didn't help that the night before we deployed, or I think it was the night or 2 nights before we deployed, we watched Jarhead, the movie Jarhead, which is a pretty rough movie. Uh, but yeah, so that didn't help. So yeah, I definitely struggled with connection. I struggled with feeling connected with home, right? Because we were so far apart, we could only call so often, right? And it was hard. Um, I actually got chided when I was with the 3-2 military transition team, the 12-man team. They were lucky enough; they had a Iridium satellite phone. The Iridium you can call back to the States. And so I was like, oh, cool. I don't have to wait in line at the spa war. I can just use the Iridium phone. So, but little did Sergeant Nathan Cumming know that that Iridium phone was literally like $1,200 a minute, and there's a limited number. They only give you a limited number. And so this dickbag is sitting here using this Iridium to call home to talk to his wife, like during blackouts. Like, That happened.
Oh
And I got
no.
they pulled me in. They're like, "Hey, like what happened? Like we had this iridium info, but now we can't use it. There's no." I was like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I used
Taxpayers'
it.
money going into some real tedious.
Just throwing it out the door. So yes, probably admitting to crimes, but it happened a long time ago. So nobody cares anyway. No, I'm just joking. So yeah. Yeah, I was using technology to my advantage, which was not right. But anyway, so fast
Misuse of what is it? Misuse
government
of
funds.
government
Yeah,
funds.
government resources. Yeah, misuse of government resources. Yeah,
I
that
think there's
probably
a lot
chalked.
of that going on, to be
Yeah,
honest with
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Though.
Just a little bit. We're trying to get better. We're trying to get that's a we'll talk later about that one. But so 15-month tour. Again, there's a lot of learning, a lot of experience. When we did get to Warhorse, I get attached, or I get put on detail for gate guard at and Bakuba's Warhorse is this little. It's not tiny, but it's not big. It's moderate sized base, and it receives mortar fire on a pretty
Yeah,
consistent
we
basis.
there's a
Yeah.
town right out the gate too. Like
Yes.
during our
Right
deployment at one
outside.
point, I got stuck at the gate because there was a huge attack that happened, and we could talk about that. There's a huge attack that happened while our guys were there, and it was we were literally watching the explosions from the
Now, were
gate.
you guys only Army in this? Was this a specific Army base only, or did you guys have was it a mix of different
No,
branches? And
I only
it
remember
wasn't a
Army.
joint base. It wasn't a joint base. Now, of course, they had, onesies and twosies, Air Force,
sure,
probably Air Force weather guys. They probably had, smattering of maybe some Navy guys that could
okay.
coordinate for like SEAL movements, probably.
But
But
there
we never
wasn't
saw
any
them.
big yeah, there
Yeah.
wasn't any.
Now, there was in this story I'm about to tell, there was a contingent of foreign soldiers that were like conscript, and they were Ugandans. That's what was funny. And unfortunately, these guys, because the control that was put on them, there's like usually like former soft guys who were like head over them, but like they had to like march in formation to go to like different places to the DFAC. Like we had free reign, we just walked wherever we wanted, whenever we wanted. But yeah, I get put on a gate guard one night, and so I got to experience different cultures and talk with them. So we were sitting there talking with these Ugandans, and they're asking questions about what America's like, and I'm asking questions about what Uganda's like, and they're asking questions about me personally, and I was like, yeah, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't have any tattoos, I don't swear, didn't swear at the time. Now I swear like a sailor. No offense, Brian. So or Marine, depending on how you look at it. But um, and it's funny because the Ugandan, I remember, and he goes, I've always tried to like uh, copy exactly how he said it. He goes, Sergeant Cumming, so you do not smoke, you do not have any tattoos, and you do not drink. And I go, yeah. And he goes, you are not an American.
He's like, oh, bullshit, that's not American,
Yeah.
Because his it was funny because his understanding of what Americans were especially American soldiers were they smoked, they drank, they swore, they had they wore tattoos. Like and so, not meeting any of those criteria, he's like, you are not an American. So, so that was
So
funny.
I wanted to ask, and I don't know if I've asked this before, and feel free to tell me no if you don't want to answer it. But so as you're speaking like this, right? It reminds me of the way that I was raised. I'm LDS. Are you LDS or are you a different form of Christianity?
Nope. So I grew up Southern Baptist.
Okay.
So yep, I grew up Southern Baptist, and I grew up again very, very my family, extended family was quite connected in the Protestant, Southern Baptist realm. So if you're familiar with any names like Jerry Falwell, okay, who's he developed Liberty University, the Falwell family, the Left Behind series, Tim LaHaye. I don't know
yeah,
if you remember that. Okay. So my family knew Tim LaHaye. Like my family was very connected. As a high school student, I ran camera for Shadow Mountain Community Church, which is Dr. David Jeremiah's ministry, which is Turning Point Television, which is a worldwide broadcast. So, I me and my dad ran camera for them. So, but yeah, we were fairly strict. But again, just because of the nature of how I was, so like my sister, I'm the youngest of three. My
conservative
older sister,
Christian.
very much,
Well,
very
yeah,
conservative. Yeah, yeah. There and in San Diego. So I mean, San Diego's kind of not. It's not LA and it's not certainly not San Francisco. But like, yeah, we were quite very very taught very conservatively. even though my family didn't necessarily always, obviously follow every rule. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, my sister was kind of seen as the rebellious one, because she kind of marched to a beat of her own drum. Um, but I think she also dealt with a lot of, we're not on good terms. I'm not on good terms with my brother right now, unfortunately. But I think she dealt with a lot of things that she didn't know how to deal with, especially growing up in a religious family. Same with my brother. And when my brother was in high school, he came out and he's like, "Hey, I'm gay, right? I'm homosexual, right?" And of course,
That's
when
a
you
hard
grow up,
thing in that conservative Christian values, right?
yeah, and he did not feel welcome. He ended up actually moving to North Park, which is kind of considered in San Diego, kind of considered the gay area, or it was at
Right.
the time. When he moved out, under kind of harsh circumstances. So again, I was the youngest, but again, I was sort of seen as the, I don't know, the compliant one. That was kind of what it was. It was just like I
Golden
didn't know.
child.
We
What's
we
that?
we call it Peter
You
Priesthood.
Some people might call it the golden child. You know what I mean? Like
I hate to use that. Sounds so terrible, but
you
yeah,
don't want to call yourself the golden
I
child,
don't.
but I'll go ahead and slang you.
So I wanted to ask based on that. Okay. So, and I know we're still working on this first deployment. We haven't even gotten into the second deployment. But it's interesting because, I was raised that very conservative, but I fell away. I used my trauma as an addiction as an excuse to go into addictions, right? And I fell away from a lot of my beliefs. I still had a lot of my beliefs, and like even in the military, I had some amazing conversations. People would come talk to me about the LDS church because they knew that I still had faith, even if I wasn't acting. And so people would come talk to me and stuff. Um, but I used all these addictions and I got myself into some really bad situations, especially being in the military and during the deployment. Like, I don't know if you knew I was getting investigated a couple
I
times,
didn't.
but yeah. And
I caught small wind, but I never knew the details, and I didn't ask.
yeah,
So
yeah. And
that'll be a recurring theme later on.
yeah. And so the thing is like I still had this faith. And so like I would go to church and I would still pray and stuff like that, but I was getting into trouble and utilizing my addictions. So I wanted to know, and because of that I was cut off and I was being traumatized continually because I was internalizing it. So my question for you as somebody who continued practicing in your spirituality and in your beliefs, how did that affect you in handling the traumas that you're going through while you were in the military?
Kind of going back to what I had mentioned earlier is I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't. Uh, it didn't come about. It actually didn't come about until the end of our deployment, until the end of the 09-10 deployment, where um, I started going to some pretty dark places. I felt very alone. I felt very isolated, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And so, um, and I didn't tell anyone. Um, and I just kind of shoved it down, um, because that's what I thought I had to do as a soldier, as a man, as a husband, as a father, whatever. Um, so and and it really didn't come to fruition until about 4 years, 5 years ago. And I can I can skip forward, or I can continue with the story up till there. But it
We could
I
go
didn't know.
forward and backwards. There's no
Yeah.
rush.
So it didn't manifest itself until um the COVID issue. And so this is actually what brings me to my current position now. So it's
Before we
2021.
get into your before we
Yeah,
get into your current position, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do a veteran showcase right now.
perfect.
And then take a little quick break if you got to go use the restroom, whatever. So this veteran showcase we're going to be doing right now is I was lucky and fortunate enough to be a part of something called the Veteran Voice Radio. I think it's something really awesome, and I'm pretty sure he's still doing it. There's two different apps now. There's Ranger Rockwave and Simplify Country, and I'm the one that ended up helping name the Simplify Country, obviously. But anyhow, I got to play some amazing musicians in there. Now what's unique about that radio station is they play only veterans or active service or family members that had served. So Amelia Presley, she's a U.S. Coast Guard veteran, and I believe she was on one of the shows, like I think it was America's Got Talent or one of those shows, but she has an amazing voice. I'm going to go ahead and play her song. So everybody go ahead and enjoy this. Once again, it's Amelia Presley, U.S. Coast Guard veteran, and here is her stuff. We're going to go ahead and disappear and allow this to play. All right.
Why do you come at me like you always do, with the prettiest smile that I ever knew? Got a heart of gold, it's laced in fire, I'm holding on to the truth. But we're both lies, there's a welcome sign at the sinner's den. You say come on in, baby, come on in. The potion makes you wild, makes me weak. We're gasping for air as we beg for heat. Swear to the sword I won't fall again, but the sun's coming up on the sinner's den. You're no good with words, so you fail to speak. I'm not good with the silence, cause it makes me think. So we come together in a firing glass. Can't make out what happened, we're moving so fast. There's a welcome sign at the sinner's den. I'll say come on in, baby, come on in. The potion makes you wild, makes me weak. We're gasping for air as we beg for heat. Swear to the sword I won't fall again, but the sun's coming up on the sinner's den. Well, I think I'm so smart till you fuck with my head, or am I the one who's tempting you instead? You say that you love me, I say no you don't. I'm just afraid to give you all that I want. I can feel a fire burning under your skin. I'm the water, honey, won't you jump in? There's a welcome sign at the sinner's den, and we'll say come on in, baby, come on in. The potion makes you wild, makes me weak. We're gasping for air as we beg for heat. Swear to the sword I won't fall again. Oh, the sun's coming up on the sinner's den. On the sinner's den.
All right, all right. So once again, go check out Amelia Presley. It is free 99 to go subscribe to her YouTube channel, and just go give her a follow on any music platforms as well.
That was impressive. It was actually enjoyable. That was
She has
really good. Yeah.
Yeah, great voice.
Amazing voice.
Yeah, one thing
Yeah.
one thing that we're doing this year is really highlighting other veterans.
Yeah,
And
great.
so like we had the podcast earlier, and then that commercial, that's another veteran, and then the song. And so we're just trying to kind of like show people, because one of the reasons why Bryan and I are doing what we're doing is to help the next generation, and to help the generations, all of us, right? Is like recognizing that you don't have to be stuck in your traumas, that you can share your story. Like our whole motto that for Coffee Talk is healing out loud, PTSD to advocacy. And so the idea is you don't have to get stuck in your traumas. Like you can find resources to help, you can advocate for others, and you can utilize creativity to help you heal. So that's one of the reasons that we do that.
Yeah, and not only that, I also would like to show the rest of the community that it's okay to be cheerleaders for each other. You know, it's okay for us to represent another podcast that in any other world would be considered a competitor or something. But you know, we're not sitting here trying to compete for different listeners. I want everybody's story to get out there and everybody's perspective. And there's so much we can get from each other. This community is like an onion. There's so many different layers to this community, and trying to expose as many layers as we can is kind of a focus that I like to do. So I think that this is it's kind of a different way of doing it, right? Like I said, we're showing the community one that hey, don't be afraid to be happy for our other brothers and sisters that are out there finding a way to be creative, to think of another way to save a life, man. I mean, if every single one of us had the goal in mind to save one other veteran's life, imagine what we can do for our community.
Yeah.
So
No, it's amazing. It's incredible. Loved it. Yeah, it was great. Where did we leave off?
now back to where you're currently serving. I think we got to around 2010.
So we skipped over the deployment a little bit. You were
Why not?
saying, you know, like, because I asked you the question about how is your spirituality and stuff affecting how you're handling things, and you had made the comment that during that first deployment you really didn't know how to handle things. Then you kind of jumped forward and was going to talk about where you're at right now, because about 4 years ago you said that was when you really started
That's when it
kind of
can, yeah,
processing through.
yes, and that's
Yeah.
when it kind of came to roost. So and a lot, obviously, so between 2007, end of 2007, and now and 2020, a lot changed. So I came back from the deployment, you know, not really recognizing that I was changed, but I was. My middle kiddo, Gabriel Michael, was born, and I started pushing myself. So I went to the basic non-commissioned officer course, BNOC. After that, that experience that I had there, I was like, oh, cool. I can I can do so many things. I can this is awesome. Like actually I was energized. So I was like, I want to go try special forces. So in 2008, I went to the special forces assessment and selection, and I did not make it. I just wasn't, I didn't train myself well enough. But yeah, in 2008, Jen was getting her degree, her first degree. She's going now for her master's. She's got two other bachelor's degrees. She's got a bachelor's in religion. She's got a bachelor's in chemistry with a minor in biology. So
Wow.
she is obviously the brains of the clan. So, but when she was going through her religion degree, we really started questioning. And one of her classes that she took, the instructor at Liberty said, "Hey, you're going to take this course, and you're gonna it will make you question. Like you'll either come out of this course and you'll be really, really strong in your faith, or you'll come out of this course and you will have no faith at all, essentially."
You'll be
Well,
even
hers
more
was,
unsure than you were before.
yeah, right, yeah. Hers was sort of kind of a mix of both. It led us down a path to converting to Judaism.
Hmm.
So, which was weird.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
we ended up going on a journey. It started in 2008, didn't finish in like conversion until like 2015. It was a long
To
process of
take
like
it to, oh,
learning.
so it's a process, huh? Yeah.
Oh, it's not like it is,
You can just
in
be a Christian tomorrow,
in
and
Southern Baptist, right? Where it's like, hey, come down the pulpit. We'll pray for you. You accept Jesus Christ into your heart as your Lord and Savior,
dip
and
you under the
welcome to
water,
the,
baptize
yeah,
you, and
yeah.
wow,
We'll get you
good.
scheduled for baptism, and you're good to go. It wasn't that. It was a long process of learning and trying to,
Wow.
and they do push you away. Like, you don't want this. You don't want it. That's not for you. Go find something else. And they push you away
So
because
they're not
it is.
knocking on anybody's door, huh? You're trying to
No, no, Jews
yeah,
don't proselytize, they don't evangelize. There are groups that
right.
do it, but on the whole, Judaism does not. They have no interest in gaining converts. And it wasn't, and we weren't doing it to gain brownie points. We were doing it because like that was the kind of the determination that we came to, and it was hard because again, our entire family is Southern
Now,
Baptist
through
Christian.
her studies, is this what led you guys more into this, just based off of you know, her
Just
going to college.
Yep.
Yeah.
Questioning it. Yep. Questioning, trying to find out answers to the questions. But unfortunately, and much like in LDS, it's like you don't you don't leave cleanly. Like you don't walk away, because that is considered a rejection of Jesus Christ. That is, you are essentially, you're excommunicated. You're off the island, to the point where they're like, yeah, but you rejected Christ. You're going to hell. Like you're
Mhm.
like, goodbye.
Well,
Like,
you're definitely
uh,
getting judged
I'm gonna
now.
say that's not like that in the LDS
oh,
church. There are
okay.
individuals who are
My apologies.
assholes, but that is not like that because we
It's
believe
not
that
all
everybody
of
can
them.
come back. So
Okay. Okay.
let me just clarify that.
Clarify.
Like
Thank you.
you have
Thank you, Marie. I'm
assholes
sorry.
that say that, but we don't believe in hell. Like
Okay.
we believe in like outer darkness where like you will
You
feel
just get
like
kicked
you're
out
in
of.
hell.
Don't you just get kicked
Be
out of LDS,
separate.
right?
You can be kicked out of the church, but you can always come back. Like the
Oh, okay.
idea is like our version of hell, which is where Satan will end up, is outer darkness, and that's just a separation from God. That's not like burning from hell or
Yep.
anything like that. And you can always come back. And
Yeah.
so that's you have assholes though. There are assholes. But I just want to clarify that. I am a
Thank you. Thank you. I
strong believer
apologize.
in that. It's
Yep, I
okay.
was not. Yep, my
It's
apologies.
okay.
I want to make sure that that's made clear. But in Christianity, it is. It's like a rejection of Jesus Christ. Obviously, means you're. And so this creates more trauma, because that really is, a big schism with our family, and we're
Yeah, I was
already
gonna
on
say,
our own.
yeah. Was this
Yeah.
received well from the families or
Yep.
not
Yep.
at all?
I-
Because I
Not
know
not
from
received
at
well.
least from the conservative Christian standpoint, man, boy,
and
Yeah.
it sounds like
this was good.
that so something that I hear a lot of is people use religion as a battering ram. And it sounds like that's kind of like what was going on. Like if you don't believe in this, you're going to hell. And so they beat you with the religion basically.
It was
And that's sad.
Well, so in defense of I still love my family. I'm still in pretty decent contact with my family. The issues with my brother and sister have nothing to do with like religion
Sure.
necessarily.
Right.
Um, but there is a strain, because we couldn't necessarily, they deeply believed what they held to be true, and they still do. And we respect that. It's like, hey, we get it. We, in good conscience, in our mind and our heart, we don't agree anymore. We can't unsee what we have seen. And so therefore we can't force ourselves to believe something that we just don't, you know. Um and so that was hard. And it did cause, it caused some strain, but and it still continues to reverberate till today. So, but um it didn't, again, the deployments and everything else, like, didn't ultimately, again, there's a lot of changes that go on between 2008 and 2021, right? There's that second deployment, right? The 09-10 deployment, which was a lot different than the
I
first
I
deployment.
I figure we could chew that apart.
Yeah, well, let's chew that one apart. But it really did. Again, I don't know. I've been through years of therapy, um, and I still am chewing on it. I'm still processing it. I'm still trying to figure out my own self. And a lot of it isn't necessarily childhood trauma. I can, and for I don't have necessarily a compelling story. It's like I wasn't assaulted as a kid. I wasn't. I didn't. I had a very decent. My parents loved me. We had a family. My parents stayed together. They almost got divorced. It was touch and go for a while, but they stayed together. So we had a cogent family, a coherent family. It was not perfect by any stretch of the means of the imagination. I had a good relationship with my dad. I had a decent relationship with my mom. It's like there really wasn't anything, that I can point to and be like, yeah, that right there, that really fucked up my childhood, and that fucked up my life, because that didn't happen. But what it is a lot of the things, it was just compounded over time, and the realization of a lot of the things that I believed and thought were true, I just it just sort of fell away. And so that stripping, really, does leave you vulnerable, and I focus more on the relationships, that I try to have as meaningful, and kind of like what you were saying earlier with the podcast friend, who all of a sudden, dude just goes competitive and just turns on you, right? And you're like, hey, like I have no I have no interest in being a part of that. Um, I sort of take the same approach. It's like, hey, if you want a relationship, let's have a relationship, but I'm not gonna accept mistreatment. Like, I'm just not. It's just not gonna happen. Like, we're
Healthy
gonna
boundaries, man. You setting
yeah,
healthy
yeah,
boundaries up.
healthy, exactly, healthy boundaries. And that's the thing. that's where this all kind of goes in. It's like, yes, wasn't traumatized, but then again, we also didn't have healthy communication. We didn't have healthy boundaries. We didn't, we weren't taught or ingrained that. And it was only until I got married and started maturing that I started realizing that that was appropriate. So fast forward, it's now 2021.
I think I think our generation in general kind of is taught that way, because for me too, man, it took a long time for me to accept and understand what boundaries are for myself, right? For me to be okay to set boundaries and then hold my boundaries with others, even no matter how hard that part was. But then I started learning, like, because you hear all these other people, and like, holy shit, well, I have boundaries too, like, and respect the boundaries. And took a while, man, but I'm in my 40s. I think I learned finally boundaries. You know what I mean? Like healthy boundaries is that.
So, and because kind of going back to, you jokingly called me the golden child, right, of the family, which again, it's because I was compliant. Like my whole
Right.
nature was somewhat of a people pleaser. Like I
Yeah.
didn't really like, one of the things I struggled with as a kid was having my own opinion about things. Was
Mhm.
like, well, it's like, well, I don't need an opinion because I've got, my dad's, I've got my friends, right? Like I just default, right? It was almost as if I didn't have my own
Like,
personality.
yeah,
I
you
was
went and did something because your dad did it too, right? Like, but you found out you didn't even like it, but you did it because, oh well, this dad did it. You
That's
know
what
what I
I was
mean?
supposed to do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was I was very it's not even programmed, like, it's not like no one did it intentionally, but, like,
Right.
I didn't
There's
have a
there's a joke out there that says, "Oh, you like my personality? Thanks, I created it for you."
that's kind of so that's kind of how I was a little bit of a chameleon.
Chameleon.
Was it's
Yep.
Yeah, a little bit of a, like, let me adapt to you, right? And to a certain degree, that's normal and healthy. All humans do it to a certain degree. We
Sure.
act differently with some people than we do with others. But the question is at what point does it transition to, like, being unhealthy, right?
When do you find your own personality? Because that's the thing. It's like it's healthy to adapt to situations, but you have to have your own personality underneath, your own faith, your own strength, your
So,
own desires.
You
and
can't
this,
take on the personality of the chameleon. You have to be able to decipher
Yeah.
each skin, you take on.
and this gets even worse because I end up really attaching my identity to being a soldier, to being a non-commissioned officer, to being a leader, then to being an aviator. And if you know any aviators, it's kind of the joke, right? It's like, how do you know if someone's an aviator? Don't worry, they'll
They'll
tell
tell
you.
you.
Yeah, like that's kind of how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
so like that's kind of the joke, right? But it's true because we wrap ourselves. At least I did, definitely. I've wrapped myself in this identity, and so when that gets stripped or the rug gets pulled, all of a sudden, and this is, I will freely admit, and this is hard because as I get ready to transition, I had to admit to myself, like, I don't know who I am. I really don't. Like, who am I aside from an aviation major, aside from a veteran, aside from, whatever,
So does
X,
that
Y, and
part
Z.
scare you to get out then? I mean, is
Um,
that a little bit of plays in a part of retirement? Because you're like, what
uh,
the hell next
a,
after?
yes, yes, and a part of it also is because I have this wrapped identity into what I've done, not necessarily who I am, but what I've done. I have this. I have had a serious comparison problem of, like, looking at other people and going, yeah, but I should be doing that. Right. So, like, a lot of these guys, aviation guys that are retiring out of the out of the Pentagon, they're going to work for Lockheed Martin, L3 Harris, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, you name it, right? Um, they're just, I mean, and getting
That's
these high
wonderful.
level executive positions, paying a lot of money, and I'm like, I have zero desire to do that. Nothing. I have no compulsion, compunction to go do that. Like and so yeah, and Brian, to your point, it does leave me very uncertain about, like, okay, well, what am I going to do? You know, but going to the 2021, where it really came to a head was the COVID issue. So I was a aviation maintenance company commander at the time, and um, and the COVID, man, the COVID, it
Changed a
was
lot of things, I imagine.
it really changed so much, and people don't I don't it really was a seminal time in American history, which really shifted a lot of things, and
Oh,
not
they'll
necessarily
look
in a
back
good
in
way.
time and know that that was a pivotal change in America.
Pivot point in America. It really was, because of the way we dealt with it, and it was wrong. And hopefully we learn the lessons and we don't repeat it, but I'm not certain. So I'm a company commander, and the mandate comes down. They say, hey, you have to get it. I had already had an exemption for influenza because of a reaction. My family, I already know that I have like some genetic predispositions. I'm already dealing with some health problems. And so I'm like, one, this thing is not tested. It's a authorized use, right? It's basically a trial, right? It
And
hasn't
it was a
been.
quick, yeah, it is the
Yep.
fastest I think trial has ever made it out to humans in history.
So it hadn't been fully tested, hadn't been fully vetted, right? There's questions about it, and everything else. And, so I have all these reasons besides, like, okay, but now you're mandating it. Let's talk about the constitutionality of it. Like, do I have a personal autonomy, right? Do I have my own personal, can I make informed consent and be like, cool. And at the time I'd already had COVID twice. I knew I had it. I got, because as aviators, we had to get tested constantly. It's like, yes, I've had it. So just curious, if I've already had it, and again, going back to my roots of being a kid who reads the regs, I, I read the Army's, immunization and chemoprophylaxis reg cover to cover multiple times. It even describes emergency use authorization, EUA, how it should be treated, right? How it should be adjudicated. It even talks about, if there's a soldier who is quite certain they got the whatever vaccine, it didn't matter what it was, is basically deference should be given to the soldier. Like, cool, they're telling us the truth. And Marie, was that the case when we were medics? Guy would come up and be like, "Oh, hey, I already got my flu shot," and we're like,
Doesn't
"Oh, hey,
matter. Where's the paperwork?
that's
Another
cool,
one.
kid. That's cool, kid." Bam, right, and like jam him, right? Like, we don't give a fuck. Like, show us a record. Oh, you can't show us a record? You're getting it,
You're
right?
getting it.
And so you're getting it, yeah. And the same with anthrax and everything else. So it was, yeah, it was terrible, right? We set up this terrible dynamic, and we're supposed to be soldiers. We're supposed to be, you know, professionals and experts, right? We're supposed to be, have this. We're supposed to have a brain. We're not communist automatons, right? Who just go through life doing what we're told. And so when I question it and I get ready to put in my religious accommodation request to decline it. I'm told, hey, you're going to get removed from command. We're going to kick you out. Your family's going to be on the street. And that was my break
Fear-mongering.
point. Yep, that was my break point. And then came pretty steady.
Now, did that
Steady.
kind of break your heart a little bit? The way that they were pushing this issue so hard, because I think a lot of, unfortunately, this really was a bad time for the military service. I saw a lot of men and women get kicked out or just left. I mean, it just really, and I imagine it broke a lot of people's heart who loved what they were doing. You know what I
Didn't
mean?
break my heart. It completely undercut the paradigm that I understood the military to be. Right.
Right.
We were sitting in a meeting, me, other commanders, other first sergeants, right, company commanders, right, and the battalion command sergeant major says, anyone who disagrees with getting the mandate or tries to push it is not American. They are unpatriotic. They should be kicked out immediately. And we weren't I'm telling you. And the problem is that there were the Army only. Okay, the Army alone has a recorded more than 3,000 names, 3,013 who were actively affected negatively by the mandate. The Department of War has over 8,500 names of people who were either kicked out or negatively affected. That's not including people like me who didn't get kicked out, but whose careers did get affected. So
Those are numbers they don't share too often.
they don't. You don't, and it's not being obviously it's not being loudly, because now with this administration, now they're saying, this is why I work for this R2TF, for the Reinstatement and Reconciliation Task Force under Colonel Bourne. Like, it is this effort to actually say, like, mea culpa, the Army did wrong. The Department of War did wrong. President Trump has said it, and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. in what realm of reality have any of us ever served where we've seen administration go, yeah, that was wrong. You were wronged.
So are
So
they
are you
working on
guys
oh, sorry.
That's what I was just gonna say. Are you guys bringing back people who were kicked out then?
Yes. Yeah.
Or
So
Awesome.
reinstating their pay? Like, I mean, I imagine this forced people to early retirement, or pushed them out way quicker than they were planning on being there. So I
So
imagine this has
you're
created a
actually
whole backlog of issues, and that's why
you
they have a
you you
whole.
you catch it. You catch it well, Brian. The massive muscle movement of trying to locate, to communicate with, because again, people have moved on. Like
Yeah,
I try to call numbers that we have on record. It
yeah.
says doo doo doo. We're sorry, this number is no longer in service. Right? They're gone. They're off the map. Right? So trying to locate them, trying to communicate with them, trying to let them know like, hey, there are options. You are not alone. I have guys that cry over the phone when I tell them like, hey, on behalf of the President of the United States, on behalf of the Secretary of War, you're right. Like what happened to you was wrong, and we want to make it right. Like dudes
Wow.
will start crying because they have been living in this, healing out loud. The name of your show, right? Healing out loud. They're living in this bubble of like basically of being shunned by the organization, by the entity that they wanted to serve. And a lot of these guys had like some of them, like Colonel Bourne, right, were, full bird colonels when they got kicked out, you know. So
You also have the people who, from what I've heard, right? We have some assholes in the veteran community, and we are actively trying to fight that. Okay, like Brian and I specifically are actively trying to be like, stop being fucking assholes, you know. But we have some assholes who, like, I've heard of people who got out because they wouldn't get the COVID, and they're being shamed for not being good soldiers, or they're like, you're not an actual soldier, like, oh, okay, I joined around 2020, and then I didn't get a chance to deploy. I didn't get a chance to do anything because I got kicked out, and they're being shamed for not being real soldiers because of that. And I'm not saying it happens everywhere, but we have some assholes in the community. And it's the same thing with people who were reservists, right? And people are like, "Oh, you're not actual soldiers." And like my husband, he was a vet. He's a veteran. He was in the Marines for 6 years, never deployed, but dealt with a shit ton of trauma, and he was ready to do it. And we actually had someone in the VA specifically tell him he is not a veteran. And so it's like you've got people who are assholes. And so I can imagine, and like my thought process is going into compassion with those people who are like, hey, I didn't want to risk my health, and this, that, and the other. And then they get out and they are losing their worth because they're like, well, I thought this was what I was doing. And so then you've got, I'm sure many of them are suicidal and stuff like that. And then you also have the people who are seen like they are wrong for denying the shot, right? But then you've got people on the other side. Like I had a guy who I'm gonna see if he can come on our show. He does structural massage and he is blind. He was a veteran and he got some sort of vaccine back around a few years back. And I don't know if it was COVID or not, but he got some vaccine that they had a bad batch. And he went completely blind in one eye, 90% blind in the other, and got medically discharged, medically retired. And so it's like you've got these people who are saying no to this shot because it's untested, and you've got people who are actually actively having results that are making them blind or making them sick, or some, in worst cases scenarios killing them, for people who are immunocompromised and stuff like that. And so the fact that people are getting kicked out for this, I am sure that there is that suicidal thought process. And so when you're sitting there saying, "Hey, we're sorry, come back," like, I think that that is beautiful. I love that
Now,
you guys are
now,
doing that.
is there a way, Nathan, for anybody that may have been affected by this that just happens to be watching or something, and they
So
can,
they could reach out
if
to
they
you.
reach out and try? Is there an actual website or something where you guys have this
so
all?
so Pete Hegseth only recently announced, if you guys were tracking what happened last week, he only recently announced that they were going to create each service has an R2TF, a reinstatement and reconciliation task force. That's what we call it, R2TF. But there was no overarching Department of War R2TF. He has just announced that there will be one made and there's going to be someone who's going to be, put at the helm of that directive, right, to try to, implement this policy. And it's not easy because there's still a lot of people
Yeah. So
who are,
Did they get back
Yeah.
paid, these guys and stuff like
Yeah,
that, guys
yeah.
and
So,
gals?
so
I mean, oh
yep.
my
So,
gosh,
so
the amount of
some of the
money that
offers, right, that when we reach out to them, obviously there's an apology, asking them where they're at in life, and what they've been doing, and then it's giving them the options, like, hey, you can reinstate. Like, you're not a reenlistment, that's different. You're a reinstatement, and if they do, and they go through the process, they submit a packet to ARBA, the Army Records Board Agency, Review Boards Agency, excuse me, or the ABCMR, the what is it, the uh, Army Boards for Corrections of Military Records, Military and Naval Records. They basically submit to have their records corrected because a lot of them got General Officer Memorandum of Reprimand and they got kicked out, or
do they
Article
get credit
15.
for
Yeah.
time loss? Do they will they
Yes. Yeah.
oh,
So if
shit.
they reinstate, it's basically as if they never left service. As long as they, as long as
Wow,
yeah, as long as
that's
they
like
qualify. Yep. Back pay, back leave. If they had kids while they're out, they're going to get their 12 weeks of parental leave, like all of this, right? So
So
ooh, that's gonna
again,
cost
but
the
to
country
your
so much.
point, Marie, we have had what they're called warriors of conscience. That's what we call them. We call them because that's what they were. They were guys who had enough sense to go, this doesn't smell right. Something smells wrong, and I'm not accepting it. Now, again, that's not to take away from. I had guys who were like, I had one guy who I'm still friends with. Actually, he served under me. He was my safety officer. He's like, sir, I don't want to. I want to fight it, but if I don't fight it, my ex-wife will not let me see my daughter because I won't. Because she, at the time, everyone was scared that COVID would kill people, right? And it did. It's not to say that it didn't. It did.
Right.
But in the way that it was used as a cudgel against people was just that was where we went off the rails. So another guy was like, hey, like if I don't get it, I'm going to get kicked out. I'm going to lose. I was at 16 and a half years of active federal service, like that close to retirement. So yeah, that's what broke me. We had guys, we have saw a report that came across my desk of a kid who uh, refused the vaccine, got kicked out. Yeah, put a 9mm in his mouth and pulled the trigger, gone. And his family's asking, hey, like, what do we do for them? Yeah, and that is a great question. We all go, yeah, what do we do for them? Because he was clearly a warrior of conscience. He was someone who, took his oath seriously, and politely declined something that shouldn't have been forced on him, right? And so yeah, there's a lot of brokenness, and we're trying to um,
Crazy, right? We're freedom fighters, right? And we lose our right to our own freedoms when we join.
make it make sense. Yeah, make the
Right?
math because it's not mathing. It didn't, and then a lot of us were like, yeah, that don't make sense, and I'm not following along with that. And then they got punished for it. And so that's where what we're trying to do is much like if you ever I forget what the name of the technique is, but it's an ancient technique of Japanese when they break a bowl, they actually use gold to mend it. If you've ever seen it, it's beautiful artwork. And sort of, that which is broken can be mended. It can be more beautiful and more worthwhile than it was before. And that's what we're trying to do with these warriors of conscience. Is trying to like, hey, not only will they serve, they will be your best soldiers because they actually do care about the Constitution. They care about service. So, but
So I'm
that's
really, I'm really glad that you are bringing this up. And as Bryan said, how can somebody contact you, or who do they contact to do this? If they're one of those people that you can't get a hold of because they changed their number and they moved on, but they're watching this, how can they get reinstated? Who do they talk to?
so you can go down to a recruiter. That is one way. So each service right now is different. A lot of recruiters don't know that this exists. It hasn't filtered down to them. So,
They're
the
all getting bombarded by who the what?
some,
Some
I mean, there's
50-year-old
some
coming in there like, hey man, I'm trying to get reinstated.
reinstated. They're like, "Ooh, like you're not our demographic." But yeah, they can go down to a local recruiter. I do have an email. I don't have it memorized, so I apologize. If you'd like, I can share it with you guys. I don't know if you guys have like show notes afterwards. We can put it
Yes,
in the
we
show
can add
notes.
it to that. Yeah.
That would be beautiful. Yeah, to get the word out there. Um, there is DFAS does have a page that talks about COVID-19 reinstatement back pay, right? Because they can go through and they can calculate. And you can submit through what's called ACTS online, ACTS online, to submit your DD 149, which is the form to basically request a correction to your military records. That's how we lead guys through that. But I can put my contact down too if someone wants to reach out. I'm completely open and transparent, available to them to try to help them to see what they can do. A lot of guys I do call, they say, hey, it's been 4 years since I kicked out. I've got a family. I've got a great job. What happened to me sucked, but I'm good, thank you. But all to say, um, what I was getting threatened with started triggering this thought, and it wasn't a healthy thought, um, but ended up becoming obsessive. And so I would go into work, and I said, I kept the repeating thought in my head was, I worked at an airfield. I said I could walk out to the airfield. No one's going to check my vehicle. I could bring my handgun. And this recurring vision, if you will, kept popping up. Is I could get dressed in my ASUs, in my dress blues. I could walk out to the center line of that airfield. I could rack one in the chamber and blow my head off on the runway, you know, as a statement. And that kept. I mean, it did not stop. And eventually, it started kind of affecting me in ways. And Jen ended up talking with my boss, my battalion commander. And while I was in his office with him, I started uh, kind of losing it a little bit. And he goes, "Hey, why don't we walk together and we'll go down to behavioral health?" And I just said, "Okay." And we went down. But unfortunately, again, that was like the cascading effects. It was that, but then because I went to behavioral health, and it was because for suicidal ideation, my
Were you
flying
ready
career.
for it, or were you more pushed into it? Do you feel like?
Um, I didn't want to kill myself, but I again, that was what was hard for me to process, because it was a recurrent, like, vision.
Mm,
This vision of me on the center line of the airfield, and I know, so Tower can see everything. So Tower would have seen me walk onto the, and that's a no walk zone. You don't just bebop, as we saw recently,
right.
on
Yeah.
unfortunately in Denver. You don't walk onto an active runway, right? So I mean, it and but it was a lot of conflicting thoughts, right? There was just race through my head, you know, and it really was like, yeah, but what good would that do? Like, I'd make my wife a widow, you know, I'd make my children fatherless, right? So, um, what good would it do? I might be page 9 on a local newspaper. U.S. Army aviation officer, commits suicide on active runway. Maybe. But is it going to get the broad writ attention of CNN or Fox News or, C-SPAN or some other, major outlet? Probably not. Probably not. So it was, I had to come to the realization, and it wasn't so much I was forced into it, but it was sort of like, I recognize I have a problem. I
It's
recognize I have a problem.
it sounds like, kind of going into the poem that I read earlier, you were getting
Yeah.
messages
It
from
struck
both
me.
sides.
No, it
Yeah.
struck me. Yeah. What you
Oh,
said was
yeah.
like, this resonates. Yeah. 100%. Um, it was. That's why I thought it was very, very poignant what you read. I was amazed. It really was. That started the journey. But again, it halted my aviation right there. I was restricted from flying. I was down, and then basically I had to jump through so many hoops to try to get back flying that I couldn't jump over the hoops. I just couldn't make it. And so I basically resigned myself. I said I just gave up. Like, oh, well, there
Tap.
goes there
Yeah.
goes aviation. There goes aviation career. That's out the window. And again, I didn't get kicked out. My battalion commander, my brigade commander, in fact, my general officer of the military disquisition at the time, he was also an aviator, who we think that he kind of maybe didn't agree with the mandate. And so when we sent what was the biggest wrong that was occurring at the time, guys, there were guys who had religious convictions against it. They would send up their religious accommodation requests, and then it would get to ASAM&RA, and it would just get denied, just blanket denied. It was no consideration. It was just like, nope, nope, nope. Right? There was no consideration of the actual of what they were trying to pitch, and so that's where it was like, okay, well, there's some fuckery going on where it's not. My packet and several other packets of guys, some, Chief Warrant Officer fives, very well respected guys in aviation, their packets went up and disappeared. They just sort of poof, went away. It never got looked at, never got considered. We never got Article 15. We never got GOMARD. It just sort of like went away. And But again, for me, it affected my career. With other guys, they were able to really handle it well, and they went on to continue flying and excelling in their aviation career. Um, but yeah, my last flight um, was with CW2 Andrew Eves. I don't know if the name sounds familiar, but he was the instructor pilot that was in the Pat 25 incident over the Potomac um, in late January of 2025. The pilot that was being examined was Captain Rebecca Lobach. She was one of the PLs while I was the battalion operations officer. So like I knew both of them.
Wow.
I knew both of them. I worked with them. So and of course Staff Sergeant Ryan O'Hara who was the backseater. Like again, that was a kick to the head too, to find out that hey, it's like aviation's inherently dangerous. So yeah, sorry. Kind of yes, I still haven't quite figured out my own internal clockwork to your question, Marie. I know that was a very long-winded answer, but I haven't quite figured out how to deal with it because it seems it's just not so black and white to me.
So, we've kind of talked, about these last few years and whatnot. What I want to do is I want to go back and kind of talk a little bit because we went from your that first deployment and then we went into 2024 and there's a good 10 years in between that or 14 years in between or sorry 10 years between yeah, that and then 2020, 2021. And so I want to kind of talk a little bit about, our deployment and then that time afterwards. And then we'll finish off. We got to be done around 2 hours. So 2 hours is our cutoff. And so, but there at the end, I just want to talk about where you're at right now and then what your hopes for moving forward are. So for now, I just want to touch base on our own deployment. We don't have to go into a lot of details. If anybody wants a lot of details, you can go into we interviewed Weaver, which is another friend of ours that we deployed with. And we went more details into the deployment. But I just wanted to touch base, like part of I'm sure some of the stuff that you're dealing with is you had that one deployment, you have all the stuff, from the religious stuff that's going on, and also the I can't think. Oh, what the stuff that's going on with your wife and being a parent. And then we go into our deployment. And our deployment was very interesting because, we had not only the mortars coming in, we had going out on missions and doing stuff like that, but we also had a lot of unit corruption going on many layers going from top down. And like, there's the Army's reason why 3-2 doesn't exist anymore. And the Army's reason is they were making changes and whatnot. But the reality is there is a lot of corruption going on. And one of the last deployments 3-2 did was just hell, from some of the research that I've done. But anyways, our unit ended up with a lot of corruption. And like even our command, what was it, Command Sergeant Major, he put on a sapper tab that he wasn't supposed to, and he was giving shitty information, and there was just a lot of stuff that was going on. So we had that. We had people who were participating in alcohol and promiscuity, me included. We had people that were covering up traumas that was going on, me included. And so because I was stuck in my addictions, and so we had all of this stuff going on, and so I know my version. People have heard my version. Bryan and I did a whole episode about our, military and deployment and whatnot. But I want to know kind of what your experience was in this, with our deployment.
Yeah. So the 2009 deployment was interesting. So we ended up deploying to Iraq the second time, and I was a little bit disappointed because I was hoping that the unit would go to Afghanistan, so that way I could do the OIF OEF. I could get the double GWAT veteran, two-sided veteran, but it didn't happen. And we're like, and not only are we going back to Iraq, but we're quite literally going back to the same place I've already been. I'm like, great, I've already been here. So I was like, okay, whatever. But we ended up deploying with a really great team. Of course, it was a brigade support medical company for 432. So which is predominantly a lot of the medics were female, not uncommon. I was one of the senior E5 senior sergeants at the time.
I thought you were an E6 when we deployed.
When we deployed, I wasn't. I actually got picked up early that deployment. So,
Okay.
but the deployment started off quite significantly rougher than the previous deployment, and it started with the rollover of the Stryker, which killed Sergeant Todd Selge and Jordan Shea.
Shay. And
Um,
before you go into that, I want to say we've actually talked about them on our show. And I did a pot, and I think I told you about this. Yeah, you were the one that gave me the names. That's what it was. So Nathan gave me the names of these guys, and we've talked about this before. I was on a different podcast, and the Gunny or whatever, yeah, Gunny. I can't remember his name. Over on Homefront Sit Rep, he is the member of Team Fast Track, which does honor flights, and I was able to get an honor flight for Selge and Shay, and it
that,
was
was beautiful.
fantastic. And I've spoken to their family members, and it's been wonderful. And but yeah, so that rollover was the one where the higher ups told them to turn around on the damn bridge, and they turned around and went over.
So I didn't know about the command to turn around. What we had been told at the time was that a Stryker had either backed up off of a ravine or something. Either way, it ended up killing both of them. I remember being pretty upset about it, which was strange for me since I was a not very emotional person. Sergeant Steve Owens, if you remember Steve. So I'm still good friends with him. In fact, he actually came to my faux retirement when I had it, my false retirement ceremony. As did Natalia Hansen and
Awesome.
yes, yeah, it was great. So, but that deployment that's how it started off. We weren't they were still doing left seat, right seat with the unit that we were trying to replace, and this thing happens, and so we get called in at night, and they bring in the bodies, um, and there's nothing we can do. They're already dead. Uh, but I remember it vividly. I remember it like it was yesterday, is because of the injuries that were sustained, and I didn't know who it was, so I won't say, but you could tell by the way that the body bag was that someone had been decapitated, because they had respectfully placed the head in the center and then zipped it up, but you could tell. And it hit me, and I remember going in the I like a like a 4-year-old going in the bathroom afterwards and crying for about an hour. It's not that I necessarily knew them, but like it just hit me. It's like, this is how we're starting. Like it's not even that they got killed from enemy fire. Like that's what really hit me. What also struck me was the realization that, like, all right, we're here tonight. In about an hour, their family's going to receive a knock at the door, with someone in uniform to tell them that, hey, I'm sorry, but your son or your father or your husband are gone, you know. And so it really gut punched me, and I didn't expect that, as much as I did. And I remember Steve coming in and asking, he's like, "Hey man, you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just give me a minute. Yeah, give me some time." And so, and that's how that deployment started, you know, not
So
to
it's
mention. Go
I
ahead.
was I was just gonna say, it's wonderful to hear that it affected you too, and I know that sounds horrible, right? But, like, as the lower enlisted, seeing the NCOs just doing what they need to do, and they just kinda dissociate, you do what you do, and so, like, we're trying to do what we do, and we're feeling the emotions, but the hard thing about it is that you guys don't get to talk about it with us, and so, like, all I remember, because one of those bags wasn't closed all the way, and I had to clean it up. And I remember one of the NCOs, not Sergeant Man, the one above Sergeant Man. I can't remember his name right now,
Um,
but I just remember him coming up and he's like, "Hey, Slider." And I was like, "Roger." He's like, "Clean that shit up." And I just remember just feeling like this person doesn't have a heart. And so being on the other side, this is super cathartic to actually see that it affected you guys and that I wasn't alone in how it affected me. So thank you for being raw and vulnerable because it's good to see that other side.
it did, and I didn't expect it to. I didn't expect it to hit me the way it did. Because there is some expectation that when you're a leader, you're an NCO, you're you're an NCO, and you're a medic. So it's like, hey, like, yeah, you just got to deal with it. That's what. And Steve was that way. It's just he was able to compartmentalize his emotions, and he's still that way to this day. He's amazing, but that's why he's so good at his job, is because he can compartmentalize and set aside his emotions about it and work, and do really well. So, but so it started off that way, then roll through, besides the issues with the unit, right? Besides Command Sergeant Major Winners, besides Woody Marisette and Stacy Thompson, Captain Thompson, right?
Captain sleeping with an E4.
Yeah, and then she disappears, and he gets an Article 15, and
Yep.
yeah, and she's married, and yeah, so
Yep.
yeah, so all of these things that come up, right? It's just sort of, but what's weird is that all of those things didn't necessarily affect me, but I can't ever forget, I can't ever let go of, the things that the casualties that we received. So including, if you were there, I don't know if you remember the kid who did the joyride in the up armored Humvee, right? Came in, you know, I'm me and Steve are the ones actually working on the kid, and Captain, who was it? It was Captain, who was the Rachel Villacorta. Yeah, Rachel Villacorta. She's the surgeon, primary surgeon, and so we're checking it, and she goes to do a rectal exam to see what his rectal tone is, and she does it, and then she looks at us, me and Steve, and she goes, like, meaning no rectal tone, which means he's got a severe spinal injury. So this 19-year-old kid who decided, again, it's the little, it's always the little details that really I have difficulty with, right? It's like this 19-year-old kid decides to go on a joyride with his buddy in an up armored Humvee, rolls it, gets ejected, gets folded in half, right? And they bring him in, and now he's a paraplegic for the rest of his fucking life, right? Like how do you like? That's where I was like, my mind was just like firing. Like, how do you process that, right? Like, all because he decided to do something stupid again, not from combat, right? It's like, what are we doing? Like, we're killing ourselves. We're not even engaging with the enemy, as far as I know, you know. Um, so there's that one. Then there's what else? There was, and I forget his name, even though I shouldn't have, but a kid who was under investigation at 114 Cav. This was near the end. He was under investigation for child pornography, unfortunately, and he was on suicide watch. And according to the stories that we received, the guy who was supposed to be watching him basically did the old, uh, "Hey, I need to go to the bathroom." Sets his rifle down, goes to the bathroom, because he knows what the kid's gonna do. So kid grabs the
I
M4, racks one, sticks it in his mouth, and again, Leanne, Runenbaum,
Yeah.
she was
Ronnie
the medic
Ronnie
on.
Ronnie
Yeah,
was my roommate in Iraq, and
yeah,
she's my best friend, and yeah.
yeah. Ronnie was the one that was on duty that night and brought him in, and I remember her just trembling like a leaf, and they're pushing this kid on the rickshaw, and literally the contents of his head are just dripping all over our floor as they bring him in. And again, it was me and Steve. Steve actually pounds on my door. He goes, "Hey, come on, like, we got a patient." So I throw on all my shit and we go in. And yeah, again, it's the little things that you remember. Kid still got his fucking earphones in his ears. Completely peaceful look on his face. Gone. So so yeah, all of these things, lovely memories
We
that have
also
been
had the
completion.
12-year-old boy that was shot with the 50 cal through his thigh,
Yep. You
and
guys
then
had that one. I was not there for that one. So I
okay.
was not there for that one. And you guys also had, oh, again, the small little details. The contractor, the
Yes.
communication. He was a civilian comms contractor. He'd been there for 24 hours, I think less. I think he was actually in his chew asleep, resting from his travels. uh, Mortar rounds land. They bring him in, and they're like, "We're doing the full diagnostic checkup." They're like, "Why is he dead? Like, what the heck? Like, he's got seemingly no injuries." And we finally, but they're like, "Okay, he's not dead, but his arm is broken. Why is his arm broken?" You know, and Steve does an X-ray. Come to find out that where the mortar landed, and it just a giant piece of shrapnel, and just tore through his arm and then lodged in his heart. Gone. And he'd been there for 24 hours, right? So, it's those types of stories, those types of things that will, like, always just, there I can't ever not remember those. Those are like, and I try to tell other people, and they don't quite understand. Like you can understand, Bryan. I'm sure you can understand to a certain extent, but Marie, again, that shared experience of being able to, having to go through that and process it. I think that's if I could, besides, I don't really focus on the what do you call it, the leadership failures, because that's what I'm going to call them. I think you use the word, um, um, I think you'd use the word uh, corruption. Of course,
Yes,
there's
corruption.
corruption.
Yeah.
The Stryker Brigade wasn't shut down because of corruption. The Stryker Brigade was shut down because the Army does transformation and just units come and go. So having worked in the G1, they come and go. But anyway, so that's kind of, that was my experience of the deployment, was those traumas. Besides all the things that you guys dealt with, Vickers, who else was it?
Allsop.
Allsop,
Yeah.
Allsop, Tucker, like people who ended up having to literally be like chemically restrained and then left the combat zone because for whatever they had going on in their life, so much trauma. And it was, yeah. And I think that's why those are a lot of the reasons why I ended up having difficulty on the backside of that deployment, where it's like, yeah, that's a lot of destroyed lives. There's a lot of crushed souls.
Because we're at the kind of the point where we got to kind of start getting ready to land the plane, let's kind of shift focus now to like, where are you going to go with the, you were supposed to retire, you want to hold off on that. What does your future look like for you now?
And what are you doing to take care of yourself through this
Right.
stuff too?
So come to, I find myself eventually in the Pentagon. So working in the G1, which is personnel. So the ASA MNRA is Assistant Secretary of the Army for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. So it's basically, that's the secretariat that's involved with all of like the G1, right? So all personnel related issues. That's pay, that's promotions, that's you name it, right? Reception, integration, all that. So I ended up, catching the R2TF, the Reinstatement COVID Task Force, and again, I say, oh yeah, here's my story. And they're like, that's amazing. We'd love to have you on our team. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm getting ready to retire. And they're like, can you stay on for one more year? And I'm like, sure, why not? If I can help some people. So I ended up extending. So I've just extended a year. So April, this time next year, I will officially be retired. So hopefully, unless something else doesn't come up, God forbid, knock on wood. So, but no, it's great to be able to help people. Where I'm going from here, besides working in the task force, so we have a really successful catering and bartending business in the area, which is mobile catering and bartending. So it's on the fly tapsters. I can send you guys the link later on as well. So if anybody's interested, so that's actually going really well, very successful.
Good.
But besides that, for me personally, that's the hard part. So again, this expectation that I'm an aviation major, right, with more than 2 decades of service, I should know what I want to do and where to go, and I don't. I should know how to manage some of the strong emotions and feelings that I have. And honestly, I was doing it was online therapy for a couple years, and I realized like, hey, real quick aside, realization of like suicide. It was like, yes, there are multiple reasons why you shouldn't, right? It's not like we encourage people to do it, right? But the thing is that is a choice that each individual has to make, but they have to come to the realization that there is a reason to continue on. My reason to continue on ended up being my family. Again, like I said, I realized like, oh, I don't want to do that to my kids. Like, I don't want them to grow up be like, yeah, my dad offed himself, right? And it's not like a selfish thing. It's sort of it's just everyone's dealing with something, right? But you have to find a reason to continue to be able to serve. You guys, your podcast is here because you want to serve. You want to show other people like, hey, you're not alone. Just come out, let's talk, right? There's no pressure to it. It's just, hey, you have to come to your own realization about why you want to continue on. And so, with my own journey, it's sort of like, I'm still trying to find out who I am actually underneath, you know, besides what I have done, besides my aviation career, besides, being a soldier, and a father, husband, whatever, business owner. I'm just trying to figure that out. And
Is it kind of scary to think about life after service?
there's trepidation. yeah, there's some nervous anxiety. Yeah.
Oh, I don't hear you.
So we're going to have a lot of talks between now and then because I want to help you to be able to get incorporated into your new squad, which will be us, the veteran community. And so you will not be alone when you're transitioning. And so we will be here for you.
I appreciate that. And then and that's also hard for me too, to a certain degree with the veteran community, is knowing that like I already do consider myself a veteran. Like, hey, I know I'm a veteran. I've already the amount of time I've served, the things I've done, like I know I'm a veteran. And Brian, you've seen it. You mentioned it, right? There was a lot of people who are just they're veterans, but they're assholes, right? They're like they so it's sort of like I am proud to be a veteran. I'm proud to have served. I'm proud to have, worn the uniform of my country that I love, right? That is actually the best country on earth in history, hands down, regardless of all the bad that happens, it's still the best country. Just go to another country, you'll see. But
Mhm.
but um I struggle with it, right? Of like, wearing the veteran hat, right? Because I'm like, I'm, you know, I don't it's hard for me because it don't it's sort of a little bit of the joke, right? The especially happens uh during Veterans Day, right? Like, thank me for my service, right?
Yeah.
Where's my free sandwich? Um, kind of a little bit jokingly, but like I don't want to be that guy. It's like I want to be in the old days. I had friends who served in World War II. Not friends, but I had a wife of a guy who served in the OSS, if you know what that was. So like that was the predecessor to the Secret Service or to the CIA. The OSS. It was the Office of Strategic Services. He did a lot of cool stuff, a lot of secret squirrely swoopy stuff. And he came back after World War II, and you know what he did? He became a regular guy. He became a regular guy. People respected him. He became a business owner, everything else. And so there for me, it's like, yes, my children and my family will always have like some of the things you see behind me, the memorabilia. But at the end of the day, like I just want to be a human being try to help other human beings. So, but thank you, Marie. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Brian, thank you so much for having me on. Seriously.
Oh,
We are so
absolutely.
glad to have you here. And Brian's going to I wish we could have more time. I wish we could. And we would love to have you come back on here. But Brian's going to put you in the background. Hold on for a few minutes because we'd love to chat and we're just going to finish up. But thank you so much for being here. It's been
You both.
incredible. It's lovely to see the humanity of the NCOs and officers that, I was so intimidated by when I was in. And so just thank you so
That's
much
what's
for being
funny. I don't know why you were intimidated by me.
here. Because you had rank.
Well, yeah. Well, sir, thank you so much for your service to our country still, and thank you for everything you're doing, bro.
Thanks,
And
Brian.
we're always here for you, man.
Appreciate you. Seriously. Love you both and continue to do great things with the podcast. Seriously.
Love you too,
Thank you.
brother. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, friends and fam, that wraps up another amazing guest. And oh man, it's great to hear, from someone who's still currently serving. And
We just don't have enough time in the world to have these discussions.
I know it is
Ugh.
hard. It is hard because there's so much to hear from the stories from everybody that served, and especially when you've deployed or whatever, to get that perspective. Because there's so many different stories that you never hear of, right? Because in the Hollywood world, they only glamorize certain stories, and they even put a little bit extra on them to make them even more. So yeah, it's great to get to hear from everybody and the perspective, and then we get to hear names of fallen soldiers and members that served our country that we don't get to hear about them often, right? If they probably weren't in your community or something, you may not even hear about them because
Yep.
a lot of these stories come and go, and unfortunately, a lot of veteran stories fall to the wayside over all these other crap going on in the country. We like to glamorize, but anyhow, we just would like to thank everybody so much for your continuous support of the show. I think our schedule is dang near booked out. So if you really want to get on the show,
November or
this
January
this
yeah.
upcoming season, I think we're about locked up for season 4, but we are already scheduling for season 5. So if you want to get on that schedule, go ahead and do it. And we just would like to, be cheerleaders for you guys. So if you're doing anything awesome out there, shoot us emails as well. If your story, you don't want to come on here and show it, shoot us an email as well. But other than that, you got anything to say before we head on out?
Check out the show at sliderbabe.com and sign up if you want. Thank you
Bada bing,
guys.
bada boom. Don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.